excited to witness the biggest event of the year. It will push your limits. 6 major battles, 7 days of power-packed performances, 8 ultimate champions, but only one legend. Watch players prove that they are the best of the best. Do you have what it takes to compete with champions? Step into the future. A one-of-a-kind virtual spectacle with the nation's eyes on you. Name and fame are yours to gain. Are you ready to achieve greatness? Because this battle can change your life. It's time for a game beyond limits. It's time for India Poker Championships Final Table Series.
The India Poker Championship. We would like to think that it's more than just a live poker tournament, that it's an emotion which draws poker players from different corners of this country and even beyond our borders to come and be a part of it. This has been an especially difficult time for the live events industry. And so in such unprecedented circumstances, when live events cannot be showcased, Spartan Poker has come up with an equally grand online series. Good evening, namaskar, and welcome. My name is Peter Abraham, and I'm delighted to welcome all our viewers to the very first edition of the India Poker Championships Final Table Series, taking place exclusively on SpartanPoker.com. This series promises a minimum guaranteed prize pool of more than 8 crore rupees. And this spectacular online series is going to have 6 featured tournaments, and we are going to live stream the final table of these with the face-up cards of every single player. Yes, you heard that right. As a viewer, you can watch each and every move these players make from what they hold in their hands. And that's not all. During the next 6 days, we're going to be joined by some top poker professionals like Sam Razavi, Kevin McPhee, Ramesh Tottapalli, and Radhika Shankar, who will be commentating on the action. We will also have a couple of special guests, commentators at the main event live stream. Those would be Maria Ho from the United States and Patrick Antonius from Finland, both very accomplished players on the global circuit. Besides these special guests and the commentating team, we will have a number of other guests who will join us for the live broadcast. So stay tuned across this week for a lot of fun and, of course, red-hot poker action. And to kick things off, the grand opening of this IPC Final Table Series, I am going to be joined by 2 gentlemen who really need no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway, because we need to kill some time before the action begins on the virtual felts tonight. Now, our first commentator has cashed out in more than 200 live tournaments. He finished runner-up in the 2018 WSOP Millionaire Maker. He's been crowned Player of the Year at the Asian Poker Tour, not once, not twice, but 4 times in a row. But most importantly, he knocked me out twice in the space of 15 minutes at the only time I've ever played with him in APT Cambodia. Need I say more? Sam Razavi was born in the United Kingdom and formerly trained as an actor. It was in fact a fellow actor who introduced him to this beautiful game, and soon he started playing poker online and spent the better part of a decade as a no-limit heads-up specialist in online tournaments before he decided to try his hand at live tournaments. In no time, he secured a sponsorship with Black Belt Poker under the mentorship of renowned English player Neil Channing. His first major tournament finish as a sponsored pro was the 2011 Aussie Millions main event, where he went on to finish 6th. Since then, he has gone on to accumulate more than $2.7 million in live tournament winnings. Of his 224 live tournament cashes, he has won 42 titles outright, placing him number 15 in the world for the number of live tournaments won and number 1 in the UK for the number of live tournament cashes. Now, he has already commentated on several high-profile events in India, and he's now going to call the action on this IPC Final Table Series. Joining Sam from across the pond is a two-time WSOP bracelet winner hailing from Coeur d'Alene in Idaho in the United States. Although at the moment he is presently based in Canada, and that's where he'll be joining us from. Like many poker players, he too was a competitive Magic the Gathering player before the poker bug bit him in college. Kevin McPhee turned pro in 2008 and has been a proficient online and live player ever since. He made a name for himself on the international tournament scene when he won €1 million at the European Poker Tour in Berlin back in 2010. 2015 was a breakout year for Kevin, where he picked up a no-limit hold'em bracelet at the WSOP event in Las Vegas, as well as in October, where he picked another bracelet at the World Series of Poker Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your commentators to kick off this final table series, Sam Razavi and Kevin McPhee. Sam, Kevin, welcome to the show, and we are really happy to have both of you all be a part of this final table series as part of the commentary team. And of course, this whole week that we've got a lot of poker action lined up. Sam, of course, has been to India before. He's been a part of several events already here. So let me start with you, Kevin. We love to ask our international presenters, how do they feel about the whole thing? Kaisa lag raha hai aapko? So I'm going to throw that to you as well. What are your expectations? How do you feel about being a part of this?
Well, tournament series like this with big guarantees, they bring out the cream of the crop of the Indian poker playing community. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the top players showing up at these final tables and, mixing in with some amateur players as well. I think it's going to be a pretty dynamic play. So, and there's quite a few players that are I rate pretty highly that I'm looking forward to seeing in this tournament series.
Let's check in with Sam as well. Sam, you probably could be ready to qualify some kind of a Indian citizenship / OCA kind of a thing. Maybe you've been around with us for a while now.
Yeah, I was going to say my visa's being handled already, and hopefully the citizenship will be in the post by next year.
Fantastic. I mean, you've been here, I think, since probably the latter half of 2017, maybe, or maybe a little earlier than that, when you participated in the APT.
Yeah, when I first started the APT, so I think it was 2012 or the latest 2013. I started going to India, and yeah, since then, since I first started going, I haven't been able to keep away. To be honest, just that there are certain places in the world where you go to play poker that you just you can't resist the pull, and Goa is one of them. So yeah, I just love everything about Indian poker.
I think I'm going to ask every possible presenter and guest who's going to be a part of this broadcast, how has lockdown been treating you? How have you managed to keep yourselves sane? What have you been doing, whether it's poker related or not poker related? Kevin, perhaps you're in Canada at the moment, although you are originally from the United States, but you are presently in Canada.
Yeah, actually, I was living in Las Vegas when COVID hit, and was looking forward to playing the World Poker Tour Venetian there and some win tournaments, and had some friends that were planning on coming into town. Mm-hmm. And all the tournaments got canceled, and really, it was kind of a shock. I guess we kind of maybe suspected it was coming when I was in LA for WPT, Los Angeles Poker Classic. People already starting to wear masks and everything, so I think we kind of suspected that it was gonna end up this way. But basically, what I've been doing is just playing online, and I just played the copious amounts of online, and I took the time to get back into studying poker, getting into some more technical studying. So in roundabout ways, it actually helped me quite a bit, and I've actually kind of enjoyed being locked down. But with that said, I did travel from Las Vegas to Mexico to play the World Series of Poker online. And then I decided to move away from Vegas with live poker being shut down and come up to Canada, where I'd have more online poker options. So I have been traveling probably a lot more than other people have, although it's been just by myself. But I have gone from Vegas to Mexico and then all the way to Canada. So it's been quite the transition. But I'm just trying to make the best out of it. Obviously, it's a very difficult situation, But it is now bringing back a resurrection of online poker, which is a nice bonus. And I'm very passionate about online poker. That's how I came up. So I've just kind of been enjoying getting back into kind of the old school for me, which is just the online grind. And yeah, it's been actually kind of fun.
Nice. Sam, what about you? Have you been grinding the virtual felts more than usual?
Yeah, well, before lockdown here, I hadn't played a hand of online poker for a long time, many months. I mean, I'd log on the occasion just to grind a couple of tournaments just for fun, But then lockdown was impending, and I wasn't really looking forward to. I was sort of thinking, hopefully this won't last too long. If I start getting online, maybe I'm going to have to put in a lot of volume. And I just kind of put it off for a while. And then it looked like lockdown wasn't easing. So started firing up the accounts, had a bit of a grind. And to be honest, when the World Series Online came round, it was a bit of a relief from being in lockdown, because it did begin to take its toll a bit mentally on me, and it was good for myself, not so much I guess for my wife and kids, but at least mentally for me, it sort of helped me get through that 3 week or so grind of the World Series Online. That helped see me through lockdown, because that was wake up in the morning in my time zone anyway. And it was starting by 12 or 1 p.m. in the afternoon, all the way through to the evening. And that really helped keep me sane. But aside from that, me and my brother set up a small... I've been involved in food and restaurants on and off, more because it's my passion. But we opened up a small sort of delivery service. The Sunday roast is a big thing in the UK. Every Sunday, people have a roast dinner. And we try to tap into delivering Sunday roasts. I really, at some points, I did sort of almost delve into, what it can be like when things really get on top of you, and quite scary, to be honest.
Yeah, it feels like we're living in our own respective Hollywood movies, because this is obviously a very unprecedented situation. But speaking of the World Series Online, we had this brief conversation earlier also about, this announcement that's been made about the World Series main event being held towards the end of the year, because Jack Eiffel says that we need to have a main event winner. And, well, I've heard a couple of things, which in fact Kevin mentioned, and I'd like you to bring that up once more about, how you think this is extremely controversial in that sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, I traveled out of the country to Mexico to go play the World Series of Poker main event already, and we were crowned a champion. So they marketed it that way to draw people onto the online series. And then now I guess they're calling it just the 5K main event championship, and now they're doing the 10,000 freeze-out championship But man, it just seems super strange to me. I thought I'd already played the main event. If I was the winner, I would have been probably kind of a little bit upset. I mean, you're crying yourself to sleep on your pile of money, obviously, but yeah, you would think that you were the main event champion, because that's the way it had been marketed. So I unfortunately am not going to be able to play. I'm in Canada for that. So the international customers will be traveling to the Czech Republic to play their final table, and the American ones will be traveling to Las Vegas, and that's only able to be played on the Nevada or New Jersey sites. I guess I cannot play, so that's a little bit disappointing. It'll be the first main event I've missed since I started playing poker professionally. But yeah, I think quite the controversy really comes from the fact that they're going to be doing COVID tests before the main event or the live final tables actually happen. And if you test positive, which of course there can be false positives, there can be false negatives, there can be a variety of issues, you are disqualified from the tournament with 9th place money. So I hope, I don't think that sounds very reasonable. I hope they find a workaround for that. I would certainly be really upset if I seems pretty unfair, and I think that's the reason for the controversy.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, I'm guessing you have some thoughts on this as well. It does seem really unfair to the players who have won titles in that particular series. Do you think this is just another marketing gimmick, or what's the deal?
Well, to be honest, we spoke about this briefly before, and I tried to, I picked and choose my words, and I was quite sedate about it. But actually, when I look at it, and I didn't hear about this thing about being tested positive for COVID, and I can't say I haven't seen that news. I assume if Kevin's saying that that's what it is, then it's true. And quite frankly, it's a disgrace. it's an utter disgrace. And imagine if you go in with a chip lead, a 3-1 chip lead on second place money, and they say, hang on a second, you take a COVID test, and they say, we're giving you 9th place money. It's an absolute disgrace, quite frankly. And I don't know what's happened. I mean, lockdown has had its effects on people in different ways. And I can only imagine what effect it's had on the directors of the World Series of Poker. From a business perspective, if that's my business, I would think, how can you possibly take away the glory from someone that's won the main event already and suddenly say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do. I think people would, the way I see it, people are pining for any big event to play. And the World Series could easily turn around and say, listen, we're teaming up with whatever online. We're running a 10K Christmas World Series, whatever. But you don't have to call it the main event of the World Series of Play. It's done and dusted. You bring out a 10K, I guarantee you people are going to be there to play it. You bring out any tournament under the banner of World Series, WPT, there are people there that will play it. And that's what I don't get. There are certain brands, you put the name to a tournament, people are going to play. So can't comprehend and can't understand why they've decided to do that. Maybe it's because of lockdown too. If we come out of lockdown and we go, well, it's here anyway, maybe we go to lockdown 3, there might be a third main event, 25K. I don't know.
Well, one can hope. I'm sure Kevin would certainly look forward to something like that.
What would be even better is if the same guy that won the one online says, right, that's it, and he comes out and wins that as well. I mean, that would make it worthwhile for sure. That would make up for it.
Yeah,
from what I understand, though, for the 10K event, that they're adding $1 million to the prize pool.
Oh.
So,
well, forget everything I said.
Right.
Let's
not be too hard just yet.
Well, on that very happy $1 million note, I guess we have had a good time chatting about these controversial things. Poker's never short of them, and I'm sure we'll see and hear more things as we go along. Well, we have already got 3 events that are in the bag, and that third event that is still yet to see its winner is, of course, the FTS number 2 event, which Sam, Kevin, and of course our other commentators will be talking about in due course. Event 1, in fact, was a 4 lakh guaranteed event, and it was won by You Got Bluff. The guarantee was comfortably crossed, and we got over 6 lakhs in that prize pool. Event number 3 was underway, and we'll get to that winner shortly in the course of this broadcast as well. And now we come to FTS number 2, the event that we will be doing commentary on in the course of a little while from now. But before we get into the broadcast in a short while, let me just throw a couple of other questions to our presenters here. Many of these events that we see in the schedule are, of course, re-entry events. And I just want to understand from the perspective of pro players like yourselves, what kind of math do you guys sort of engage when you decide, okay, I'm going to buy an X number of times? Is it all just driven by the prize pool? And what's your cutoff, so to speak, in terms of the number of times you'd want to buy? Sam, if you can.
I mean, for me, especially when I'm playing online, I think I've gone beyond the realm of sensibility, and my finger just clicks on the red button, and it has a mind of its own, quite frankly. But no, I mean, I don't come. I used to play a lot of heads-up cash online. I wasn't really that much of a online tournament grinder, so I couldn't really when it comes to re-entry online, I think I don't know if I'd go so far as saying I'm a degen, but I just love the action. So as long as the late reg period's open and the balance is positive on my account, I'll be re-entering. I don't think that's the wisest thing, and I think Kevin, being much more experienced online than me, will probably give you a much more sensible answer.
Well, that's a nice little tilt. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, I mean, I just look at each entry as its own unique tournament. You know, if I wanted to enter the tournament to the beginning and I bust, then I'm in the same situation as the beginning of the tournament. So usually I just keep firing as long as I feel like the tournament is profitable and I have my emotions in check. I'm not on full-blown tilt or anything. I'm just going to keep firing. I'll do as many bullets as it takes. And actually, it's an interesting dynamic that's created from these re-entry tournaments, because the best players with the deepest pockets are going to keep firing, which means the end game is going to be a lot tougher. And a normal freeze-out tournament, if a good player busts, they're out, you know?
So obviously, the better players, the ones with the deeper pockets, are going to be able to fire the most bullets, and they're going to have a bit of an advantage over the amateur players that only fire one bullet. So when it gets to the end of the tournament, you're gonna find a lot more of the better players that are still in, and so the competition is going to be super tough at the end.
All right, fair enough. You had mentioned before our broadcast that you were happy that some player had actually made it to the final table. Who was that?
Yeah, the chip leader of the kickoff event is Arsh Grover. I met Arsh quite a few years ago. He came out to an EPT in Prague. He's an excellent player. I haven't got a chance to see him play too much, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how he handles the chip lead in that event.
As Kevin mentioned, Arsh Grover, I don't know him as well as Kevin does, but I obviously know of him. I know he's a fantastic player. I'm slightly embarrassed that I haven't heard of a lot of the other players that have made the final, which is quite exciting for me. Although Madan Kumar, I definitely know, and I love him. He's as a person, he's just he's so down to earth. He's such a great character. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what action is going to unfold this week.
Wonderful. Let's take a look at the players in terms of the chip counts. Right at the top of the counts right now is a young player from Delhi, Arsh Grover, who Kevin McPhee has mentioned a little bit earlier, having met him and having enjoyed his play, and he's looking forward to commenting on his play. Sriharsha Boneni playing as UDAM at 2.7 million in chips. We've got a player from Bombay, Chetan Jain, playing as CJ with 2.6 million in chips. And Madan Kumar, as Sam Razavi mentioned a little earlier, is playing as Mad Sisman. And he's from Bangalore, this player, and he's got 1.8 million in chips. Raghav Anand is playing as Mr. Bean, and he's got 1.7 million in chips. Sagar Chaudhary, who's had quite a few top finishes online, he's playing as Strange Play, and he's got about 1.4 million in chips. And coming into the last two players is Srijan Batra, who's playing under a very interesting name, Dawn Facerer, a little over 900,000 in chips there. And we've got Harsh Basin, who's in the 8th position with a little over 500,000 in chips. He plays as Killing Machine. And of course, the prizes that all of these guys are playing for, these finalists, but there can be only one, as that famous Hollywood line goes. So the winner of this 40 lakh guaranteed kickoff event is going to have not only the prize money that they will get, there's also going to be a beautiful 18 karat gold medallion, which will go the way of the winner. And there's also a gift hamper and a winner's certificate. So it's that time of the day that we are going to get into the action right now. Let's raise the curtains on the very first final table coverage of the India Poker Championships Final Table Series. Gentlemen, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Oh no, I remember I need to pull that up. That's some of my best work commentating on that hand. Kevin McPhee into the arms and they're going nuts. Because, yeah, that was great.
I don't think I've seen clips of the broadcast, but I've never actually seen the entire thing. I'm sure my parents
Would love to see
Some
it.
guy like three or four bet jammed King 5 offsuit against your Ace 10, and it's like you can't even fold whatever you've got. I was like, this is so. I don't even know what's going on here. Like, I think on the bubble anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
bubble
he
hand.
it was just a button raise and he shipped small white or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
Well,
it
it's
was.
been pretty exciting so far, and the action's now live. We've already got 3 eliminations happening on this FTS number 2 tournament final table. And the first one to go, in fact, was CJ from Mumbai, who was, in fact, third place in chips, and he's out of the final table first up.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate to come in with that kind of chip stack and be the first one out. Certainly disappointing for him. But these sort of things happen at a final table, and be interesting to see how the rest of it plays out.
Yeah, it's always frustrating when you go in with high aspirations and it's all snatched from you at the last minute. So, yeah.
Well, I think it'll be really interesting seeing how Big Timer, aka Arsh Grover, and Mr. Bean collide at this final table. Now they both have some chips. Certainly was having high expectations for Arsh coming into this final table. He had such a dominating chip position. He really could just min raise a lot and take it down, but the effective stacks are pretty shallow. So I think a lot of the more creative play is going to be handcuffed a bit here.
Yeah, especially having that really short stack in between. There's always that, that dynamic going on.
We've had like a flurry of eliminations already, and it's down to the final 3 now.
Yeah, Mr. Bean put a pretty sick beat on one of the other competitors, getting it in jacks versus kings, and spiking the jack on the river. So that was pretty dirty. That was against Mad Sisman, so that's Matt and Kumar. Pretty unfortunate sequence of events for him. River jack, gutter.
Yeah, that's really painful. But I mean, if you just look at Mr. Bean's profile pic, you knew the jack was coming all along. he's mocking you. He's like, there, yeah, you try me. I'll get there on the river.
Well, considering the number of videos we've seen about how badly jacks tend to mess people up at the table, that was actually one for the opposite side, I guess. Finally getting one on the river. No doubt a sick beat, though.
Well, here we have the Don Fossery min raising the A7 from the small blind. I think that should be a pretty standard shove. You don't really want to be giving odds to the chip leader to just peel any 2 in the big blind, which is what you're doing when you min raise there. And with about 10 big blinds, that's a pretty standard shove, especially with ICM considerations. You just want to make sure to take down the pots and that you deserve and keep increasing your chip stack. So a little unconventional play there. I think pretty much that's a standard shove. And we're going to be, I think really what we're going to be wanting to look at here is these blind on blind confrontations between Mr. Bean and Big Timer, with the shortest stack being sub 15 big blinds. These guys really don't have the incentive to get into a big confrontation. So it'll be interesting seeing how Arsh puts pressure on Mr. Bean here. Of course, we see him dominating the Queen 9 with the King 9 offsuit, although Mr. Bean has caught the Queen on the flop with the backdoor flush draw for insurance. It's going to be tough for Big Timer to continue.
Yeah, I think there's always one of 2 ways it can go when you have this sort of dynamic set up. The 2 big stacks can sort of play it easy, well, not easy, so to speak, but more cautious and sort of see if they can eliminate the shorter stack. Or it can go the other way when one player really wants to ramp up the action and really put the pressure on. And I think if someone decides to do that and they can get away with it, then often you can tend to run away with the tournament.
Yeah, we're going to have a pretty standard open here with the King 10 offsuit on the button against the short stacks big blind. It'll be interesting to see how Big Timer reacts here with the Ace 8 suited. Certainly a reasonable hand to peel with out of the small blind. but also a very reasonable 3-bet candidate. So we're going to see him going with the 3-bet. Now, this puts a lot of ICM pressure on Mr. Bean. It's going to be, I think normally this would be a pretty standard peel with King 10 offsuit, but with ICM considerations, it just makes it so difficult to continue post-flop when you do flop marginal holdings. So we are, for that reason, going to see a fold out of Mr. Bean here.
Would you ever consider playing back in that spot, given that we know Big Timer is, is accomplished? He can definitely he'll definitely know Mr. Bean's, up to shenanigans often opening on the button there against a short stack that has a lot of pressure on them. Or,
I mean, I certainly think that you can include that hands like this as a 4-bet. I mean, generally speaking, I want to have more of a linear strategy with my 4-bets. So rather than just picking random hands, I would take potentially the top of my folding range and then turn those into 4-bet bluffs. So that way I'm more equity driven in 4-bet plots. But just with we're seeing a big competition here with the King 9, the Ace Deuce. But to finish that thought, it would be quite reasonable, but you never really know what Big Timer's going to do. He could just 5-bet shove in your face too. So that's definitely part of the equation. It would be put him in a situation where he can't really do that without a premium hand. So King 10 could be actually a pretty reasonable 4-bet there. And I'm hoping to see some street poker like that on some of these final tables coming up in the next week, because there certainly is a lot of room for creative play with these sort of ICM situations, especially when you have two big stacks battling against each other while the one short stack is sitting there waiting. There's just an incredible amount of creative play that can happen in those sort of situations.
Yeah. I shall add that to my notes. You don't know I've come on here just to come and break Kevin McPhee's brain, so I can resuscitate myself as an online grinder. So yeah, thank you for the advice there, and we continue.
Well, it certainly sets up an interesting dynamic when Mr. Bean is really incentivized to open a lot of buttons because he's opening on the short stacks big blind, and then when Big Timer finds a hand like Ace-8 suited to 3-bet. It's going to maybe make him a little more cautious about opening super wide on the button. So for that reason, I really like Big Timer 3-betting that Ace-8 suited hand. Traditionally, maybe you can peel some of these hands because you're keeping in lower suited hands. You're keeping in other Ace-X that he maybe will fold out and then can dominate some of his range. So pretty interesting to take that line. I think that's just shows Big Timer's experience. Arsh is a very accomplished and well-respected online player, so you can see that coming through here. Definitely likes to apply the pressure.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have any idea who Mr. Bean is? His real identity? I mean, I know it's Rowan Atkinson in the UK, but
Mr. Bean is Raghav Anant.
Ah, okay.
So it looks like we're just on a little break here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think while we're on the break, should we discuss the love-hate relationship with Pocket Jacks?
Yes, we can.
Oh, dearie me. It is a tough one, isn't it?
I think that's one of my favorite videos. I'm sure you guys have seen it too. The guy who's compiled a bunch of his online knockouts and bad beats with Pocket Jacks. It's insane. It's like 7 minutes of pure hell and pure fun at the same time.
Oh, there used to be a guy that used to stream. I mean, he must have been well ahead of the curve because he sounded like he was like in his 50s. But many years ago, I think he was called Tough Fish. And he used to do some streams of his play on one of the well-known sites, and he used to just be on major tilt constantly. But anyway, we're back to the action.
All right, we're back to the three-handed action here on the final table of this FTS number 2 tournament. There's almost 7.5 lakhs up top.
Yep. I think we've just lost the action for a second, but it's fine. We managed to scare Kevin McPhee off with the mere mention of pocket jacks. He was like, "No, please don't, please don't resuscitate old memories." But
All right, our technical team is telling us that there is some issue with regard to connectivity, so we might have to call this tournament to an end. We have been told that it's Big Timer who's actually won FTS number 2. So congratulations to Ash Grover for taking down the title. And remember, we will be back tomorrow as well, where we will bring you action from FTS number 5. And the gentlemen who are with me will also be joining in along with some other commentators as well. So congratulations to all the winners, to all the finalists of FTS 2. We hope to see you tomorrow again in this live stream broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us.